I hope you all find that as pretty as I do. That is, oh, that's an 8. That to me is just so. It's such a beautiful deduction.
I like this and how it forced the sum.
Yeah,
That was
the
very
9
nice.
wasn't allowed because it worked out to be 1 higher than it was allowed to be, which was, just those beautiful moments.
It is a very, very cheeky deduction. That 9 that we placed because of short line, it is such a sneaky thing to see because it is the shortest line in the grid and you don't expect it to do much work, but it is the key.
We can certainly say the Cogito is sneaky.
That has been known to happen.
That's fair.
Yes, and another excellent Cogito puzzle.
How do you have this sort of idea? This is another of these occasions where I just don't know how the Cogito got up in the morning and said, I know. If I think about Latin squares, I can just see you can make a snake, or you can make 3 snakes and cover an entire 9x9 grid in a tiled way where the snakes don't touch each other. Oh, and look, and there's a repeated pattern going on in the snakes. How do you have that thought process? It doesn't make sense to me. And yet, here we are. I do see how to do it. This is absolutely beautiful. This step is charming. It's charming if this is what you're meant to see.
This has to be 1, 2, because I can't put 1, 2 in any of those cells. So there's no 5 here. This is a 5. So this is 3, 5. So this is 1, 6.
Wow. Just wow. What a puzzle that is. Sensational from the Cogito. Novel. And, one of the great compliments that we give Fistemafel puzzles so often is that Fistemafel takes an idea and creates the perfect puzzle first up with it. The first puzzle you see of that genre from Fistemafel is like the best puzzle you can possibly imagine. It's hard to imagine how you could have done much more than that from the Cogito. It's just gorgeous.
Hello everyone. Welcome to today's Setter Spotlight. We have the Cogito today, obviously, from the video. Thank you for coming to speak with us today and share your thoughts. How's your day going?
Good. Yeah, no complaints. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
No complaints. I mean, you're welcome to complain if you'd like to complain about something.
I do a lot of complaining, but that's usually more private.
Yes, indeed. Some announcements before we get started here. First up, we had a pre-recorded video earlier this week, the Starlight video. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out afterwards. The other update is that we're almost at 500 subscribers, which means that I will be doing one of these sort of interviews with questions asked by you guys. And I'll probably answer most of the questions that I usually ask my my interviewees. And we'll probably have maybe a short puzzle solving stream as well, because I know Rockrat made a puzzle for 500 subscribers, and I would feel bad if I didn't do that, so we might do that as well. The only other thing is that we, of course, have a Patreon and a Ko-fi. And I want to thank David Ratner and Directionary, who have both donated in the past little while. Very, very generous people who should be rewarded for their lovely donations. And those will go to supporting the stream, right? So let's begin with the warm-up questions. First of all, the Cogito. How the heck do you say your name?
I guess that's an interesting question. I was taught. Originally, I was taught that it was the Cogito, but I've looked it up, and there seems to be no consensus on how it's pronounced. So the Cogito seems to have stuck, and I'm cool with that.
Is it a like British versus American English sort of thing, or?
No, it's like everyone just making stuff up. Like, I mean, it's like I'll look up how it's pronounced, and it's just different people just saying it's different, like definitively, as though there's a. I mean, I don't know, right. And there's no native Latin speakers to consult, so I couldn't.
I'm sure there's some who claim to be so, but probably not anymore. And that's the word cogito is Latin for consciousness. Is that correct? Something like that. I think, therefore I am.
think
Is that what it's from?
something along those lines for sure? Yeah. I mean, the cogito, the cogito, it's just an expression. It's a nickname for an expression, I guess, by Rene Descartes.
Right. Okay.
And that's the I think, therefore I am. So yeah, that's what that is. I don't know why I thought it would be a cool name, but for some reason I did.
Was that just for puzzling? Like, did you start puzzling with that
No,
name?
I'd thought of it years ago. Yeah. So I mean, it's something I use different names in different kind of sparingly in different situations, I guess.
Hmm.
So, and I brought
Okay.
that one back for this community for whatever reason. It sounded erudite.
I like that, Daniel. I think this is my name, therefore it is. Okay. Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of puzzling?
Yeah, I like tennis. I don't play. I haven't played in a long time since COVID. I need to start playing again. So I like tennis. I like video games, certain video games, and hanging out with my friends, and that's most of it, really. It's most of my time in a nutshell.
Right. My fiance keeps trying to convince me to play tennis, and I keep trying to convince her to make friends with people in our apartment building, and the people next door to us just so happen to play tennis, and she's like, "There we go, we both get what we want," and I'm like, I don't want to play tennis. It's winter here like 90% of the time, so it's not a good tennis place.
Tennis is fun once you get past the phase of making a fool of yourself. I mean, no one starts good at tennis,
Right.
really.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV show, or a favorite video game? That's a good idea. RDN DNT.
That's kind of tough. Probably Super Smash Bros. I mean, it'd almost have to be. I don't play it much anymore, but I put so much time into it, like playing it seriously. I had a friend who I used to play with a lot, and we went to some local tournaments. I mean, I don't think we were ever like really any good, really. And if he just got to a point where he was just better than me. But he moved away, so I don't play with him anymore. So I therefore don't play the game much anymore. But I mean, in terms
what
of
was
the
your
amount of
main?
time spent, I just think that game is spectacular.
What was your main?
In Ultimate, I liked Wario. In Melee, I liked Marth.
Marth's good, yeah.
In Smash 64, I liked Yoshi.
Interesting. I know a player who is very frustrating to play against as Yoshi. I haven't played it in a long time either, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, Smash is kind of weird because, like, yeah, I would play more, but you actually have to find. I mean, so like, I played so much that I have to take it. I don't often find people who would even have a fun time playing against me. And Yoshi is definitely a character that would be hard to play against if you didn't know what you were doing, and
Yeah.
they did. He can just do some ridiculous combos, and if you don't understand how to get out of them, they're just ridiculous.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite movie or TV show? And or I guess.
Um. Uh. Yeah. So shows. I like Breaking Bad. I like Death Note. I think One Punch Man's really funny. And I liked Black Mirror, at least the
Yeah.
first couple seasons. Um, movies. I guess I've always had three movies that I always considered my three favorite. One of them is just because I think it's stupid, and I think stupid is funny, can be
Yeah.
funny. But Team America: World Police, I really like that movie. And then I like Saving Private Ryan, and I like Shawshank Redemption.
Good choices all around. What's your favorite type of food?
I'm a sweet tooth, so I anything with sweets, but I'm trying to cut it down on the sweets, but I don't know. I mean, I'm really not a picky eater, to be honest. I'll eat most things, but I love sweets. So
Okay. Favorite type of music?
got a shirt on. I actually have a Tower Power shirt on right now. I don't know if anyone knows who Tower Power is, but it's kind of indicative of some of the music that I like. So I like funk. I like classic rock. I like classical. I like most music that isn't. I'm not a huge fan of hip hop. I'm not a huge fan of modern country. Most other music I'm
Stomach.
agreeable with, at least selectively.
Fair enough. What do you do for work?
What was that?
What do you do for work?
I work for the state of Iowa. I work to regulate utility companies in the state. I work for the Iowa Utilities Board. So this is like really not exciting, but I mean, to most people, when they say that, it doesn't sound exciting. But regulate electric and natural gas companies in the state, and so I'm an analyst for the board. So I help in that way, I guess.
Analyze.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any pets?
I don't. So I live in a house with my sister, and my sister is older than I am, and my mom. We all live together. Um, and my sister and her husband, they own three dogs. But I mean, they're not mine, but like I live with them.
Do you like the dogs?
Yeah, I love dogs. I love
Okay.
dogs.
Just the way you're like, well, they're not mine, but
No,
I
but they
tolerate
aren't.
their
They aren't.
existence.
I'm certainly not their caretaker, but
Yes.
I love dogs.
I feel like if you don't take the dog for a walk, it's not really your dog.
Right.
Kodak asked, are your colleagues aware of your setting career?
No. Unless not, they haven't mentioned it. I don't really talk about it with anyone from work, anyways.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into the portion of the interview that's more focused on puzzles. So speaking of puzzles, what was the first puzzle that you ever set?
It was a puzzle. The title was Primes Are Fun, I think. I set it. Well, this is the first puzzle I set seriously. So like I came back to Sudoku in general after I had done it when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then I came back. And when I was younger, I tried to make Sudokus. I'm assuming, just considering my age at the time and general lack of genuine, intense interest in it, that the puzzles that I made were terrible. But
Yeah.
the first serious puzzle that I made was a puzzle after I joined the Discord. I made a puzzle that was uh, it was pretty. It was kind of insane. Oh, it was killer. It was a killer. It was a killer cage Sudoku where every cage summed to a different prime number, and then in addition to that, every digit was couldn't see itself a taxi cab distance away from itself. Like that
Uh-huh.
was a prime factor of that digit. And that doesn't make any sense when I say it like that. But like 6 is divisible by 2 and 3. So 6 couldn't see another 6 2 spaces or 3 spaces away. So it couldn't.
Wow,
So
okay.
6 was anti-king and anti-knight, for example. 7 couldn't see another 7 space. It was really bizarre.
So I have to ask, are primes fun, or was that puzzle not very fun?
You know, I don't know. I've never gone back and solved it.
Hmm.
I think that the main thing holding it back is the taxi cabs and having
Yeah.
to maintain a list of the primes. But I actually think there was some cool stuff going on. I mean, if memory serves, but I also think it was kind of a bit much to keep track of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you first start setting it, sometimes it kind of feels like you have to get all your ideas into this one puzzle rather than like realizing that it's too much to just put the taxi cab and the number of primes. Like it's hard to
Right.
gauge when you don't
Right.
know.
I think it's you know, you kind of at least I've grown to realize that I would rather find something cool from something more simple, I guess,
Mhm.
or at least something that's not so I mean, that's just it's very verbose, I guess. That's a rule
Yeah.
set. Yeah, I probably could have added more rules. You're right. I needed to make it like non-consecutive. Really, I mean, I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, really. It's not even a
King and
paragraph. It's just a couple sentences.
But yeah, that was my first puzzle. Ambrose tested my very first puzzle. I think he's the only one who solved it, as far as I'm aware. He basically said exactly what I just did, that it was kind of hard to keep track of the taxi cab distances. Understandably so, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the two concepts really have nothing to do with each other. It's like, I mean, it's like prime factors. Okay, yeah. So, and it's prime cages, but there was no like interplay between those two concepts. It was just, they both somewhat relate to prime numbers. So I just threw them both in.
Right. Did something directly inspire that puzzle, or was it all Cogito?
Think of, I think I was just trying to think. I think I was sitting there. I decided I wanted to set something, and I thought of something. I wanted to do something with primes, and so I was like sitting there, just kind of like fiddling around with it, and I really struggled to imagine any direct influence on that puzzle, because I think I was just messing around, and then I was like, oh, I can do this, and then I later thought of the taxi cab thing, so then I was like, oh, I'll do that, and then the entire setting process was super strange. I've never repeated it, and I don't intend to. Just the way that puzzle was set, because that was set. I set that in at Microsoft Excel, and found a grid that met the taxi cab constraint, and then fit cages into it. It was super ill-advised, I guess.
I would ask, how did you find a grid? But I really don't want anyone else to try to find a grid, so I'm not going to let you answer that. What inspired you to set a puzzle in the first place? Not specifically that puzzle, but why did you want to set a puzzle?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think like probably just like some certain level of boredom. I think I was kind of bored for a moment, and I had thought about, there was a puzzle pack a long time ago, way before I started setting, that on Tracking the Cryptic, that had like I can't remember the pack, but it had on the last grid it had these diagonals, and it was like, it was two diagonals where you had to fill in digits that you got from the previous puzzles, I believe. And I remember I completed that pack, and I sent it in, and I speculated on how hard it seemed like it must have been to have made it, made the puzzles. I kind of just wrote it off as something that was too hard for myself, and then months later I was hanging out at a friend's house, and we were just hanging out, and I showed him, I was mentioning, because the Miracle Sudoku video is obviously really popular, and so I'd known about that video, and I wanted to show it to him, and he got a kick out of it. And then I was kind of like had Sudoku, because he started watching. He actually still watches the videos. He started watching the channel quite a bit more than I was at the time, certainly. And so then he was telling me about how he was watching it, and it was pretty fun. And so then I started watching a few videos, and I kind of just at some point just decided I wanted to set something. I don't know. It just seemed like a challenge that I wanted to engage myself in.
So when you finished setting that first puzzle, were you like surprised how easier, or were you surprised how hard it was to set a puzzle to begin with? And did you want to set more after setting that one, or were you like,
no, I was surprised it was even possible. I was surprised that puzzle was even possible. I still think it's kind of a strange puzzle to even exist. But I don't know. It was hard, but not in a bad way. I enjoyed setting that puzzle, so I think it kind of hooked me, I suppose. I mean, I don't think the puzzle was anything special, really, but I mean, the process of setting it, even though the process is something I haven't repeated since then, it was still fun, and I love problem solving. So, like, I've always been a math guy. So, and I just like playing with numbers and just problem solving in general. And I've always loved solving puzzles. So, it just kind of was fun.
Definitely. How long did it take from your first puzzle setting experience to get your first CTC feature?
I think it was like, it's hard to say, because I set, I think, a couple puzzles, just kind of like one-offs. Like, I wasn't actually actively working on setting. I was just kind of like, I would set something every once in a while.
Right.
When I first started. But that first puzzle, I guess I don't know the day, but I would guess it was probably something in the range of, Tall Cat. I would guess it was something in the range of 5 to 6 months. Probably like maybe low 5, actually. Probably 4 to 5 months.
Yeah, I would say a few months, probably. The first puzzle featured, as Tall Cat says, is this broken 159 puzzle called Staggered. How did it?
Yeah, I think there were certain elements of that puzzle that I kind of lucked into, but I am happy with that. I'm happy with it.
How did it feel to get featured?
It felt great. I mean, it was Saturday. It made my weekend. So I even though Simon messed it up, and I think it made him feel bad, it was still very, very fun to watch. So.
I mean, the thing that he messed up was literally just at the very end, instead of not indexing
it wasn't
something.
A big deal. I think he understood what was going on. I think he got excited because he thought he'd messed up. He thought he'd messed up, and then he got excited when he realized what was going on, and then in his excitement, actually messed up.
Yeah. Which was just amusing for everyone, I think.
Yeah, no,
Was-
I loved that feature. I mean, it was really, it's really exciting. The first feature is obviously always going to be going to have a special place in my heart as a setter.
Right. Before you got featured in those few months, was sort of the goal to get featured, or was it just sort of a second thought?
I think I wanted to get featured. Yeah, I at least at some point it occurred to me that that's something I wanted. I wouldn't say I set puzzles to get featured because it just seemed like a long shot, but yeah, I mean that was certainly something I was interested in.
Did it change your perspective at all to get featured, or was it just like, oh, that was great, and then like continue doing the same
No,
thing?
that one didn't. My perspective sort of changed on it later. I think no, I mean that one was just it was very satisfying and fun, but then I made some really nice puzzles between that one and my second feature that I think sort of my mindset on features in general and the pursuit of them sort of
Mhm.
changed
Right.
because those didn't get featured, obviously, and I still think they should have, but I'm biased.
Right. Describe in a few words, what is your setting process?
I walk around a lot, so and it like annoys people like talking to me. I'll walk around. I like walking. I pace, and even like if I'm like engaged in a conversation I have to think about, I might pace around and while I'm talking. So setting, I kind of shift between playing around, say on my computer. Sometimes I'll write notes down. I don't know. It's kind of diverse, I guess. It's going to depend. Sometimes I'll write things down because I've always liked pencil and paper, but it's kind of hard to fully set a puzzle on pencil and paper for me. But like I'll kind of try to form some thoughts on paper, and I'll kind of walk around and let it ruminate, I guess. Part of the reason that I don't think I produce puzzles as fast as say Grockles.
No one does.
Um, but it's it's I will think about puzzles for a while. It's kind of how I've always done things. I've always I just kind of like think about things. I'm a thinker, and so I'll think about things, and then I'll come back to them, and then for some whatever reason they're much easier for me after I've done that. So that's kind of my approach setting as well.
You think, therefore you set.
Right.
I mean, speaking of your puzzle output, I noticed that you have quite a few, or sorry, the opposite of quite a few. You have less puzzles on LMD than someone who might have started at the same time as you. Like, I think other people have put out more puzzles than you on average. Why do you think that is? Is it just the walking thing, like you produce puzzles less frequently?
Not just that. I'm kind of an inherently lazy person, so and I find LMD to be clunky and hard, and I set puzzles for my I set puzzles. I mean, I'm the kind of person who, even if the community didn't exist, now that I'm enjoying setting puzzles, I would probably set puzzles just for myself.
Right.
And the yeah, LMD is just kind of hard to use, so sometimes I just don't really feel like uploading a puzzle. So then like I have puzzles in like a backlog, but it's kind of I also don't mind it because it makes it so I can just publish the puzzles I'm particularly happy with or that I think did something, noteworthy that perhaps other puzzles I've made didn't, or that I wasn't
Right.
as thrilled with. So it helps me be like selective, but I also just every once in a while feel like putting in the effort to even publish a puzzle, and that's not that's usually when I post a puzzle. So I also just try to like sometimes maybe I might like feel like posting say a bunch of puzzles at once, but obviously LMD they encourage you to spread it out. So then I just kind of end up waiting, and sometimes I lose track of how long it's been since I posted a puzzle. So then
Yeah,
it
I
might be
feel
like
that.
2, almost 3 weeks before I post one.
Once I looked and it had been like a month and a half, and I was like, but I posted one yesterday. What? It's funny that you say you're a very lazy person because I would say you're probably one of the most productive setters that like you work really hard on specific projects, like specific puzzles, but you don't produce like many puzzles, you know? So it's interesting that you say you're lazy. To me.
Yeah. So when I say I'm lazy, I mean that I have a hard time doing things that don't sound fun to me, which is part of the reason we've had a lot of conversations about, my solving and how I am kind of quick to give up on puzzles just because if I'm not enjoying it, I can't I struggle to make myself do things that I don't enjoy. So I don't enjoy posting to LMD. It feels really uh, I mean, no one enjoys posting to LMD. It's something you have to do, but it's like I would just as soon go work on a puzzle
Right.
than actually post one to LMD. Because working on the puzzle is fun, posting to LMD not fun. So I just
Right.
kind of like, oh, I'll do that later.
How many puzzles or iterations on the same idea do you create before you find something that you really like?
That depends on the puzzle. Some puzzles, a staggeringly large amount. Occasionally, I'll have puzzles that I manage to find something I like quickly. That's not the norm though. I would say I tend to, even if I find something that I like, I will usually at least not maybe not usually, but decent amount of the time I will still can keep working on it and just making sure I can't think of something else that I didn't think of originally.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely depends on the puzzle. There have been some puzzles that have just I mean, I'm definitely, and someone, Tall Cat said, mentioned me being obsessive. I'm definitely obsessive. I will obsess on a puzzle and keep making it and remaking it and remaking it. I mean, I think the I mean, most puzzles that I make are like that. Broken Pencil was like that. The recent feature, I made it and then I kept on making like changing things. And I don't even post a lot of the versions that I make to testing. I just some puzzles might have like 20 versions. Whack would be an example of a puzzle that I just kept working on, just different ideas, just trying to see what worked. Whack is a good example of a puzzle that none of the previous versions worked, though. I just happened to find something that worked. But like the Shikoku, the Killer Shikoku, it's like I think you find a step and you're happy with it, at least decently happy with it, but then you might think back on it and be like, no, I can do better. Then I might go back and I might go back to where I was and change it.
Right. Lots of questions popping in the chat.
The title was Killer Shikoku, Niverio. It is a Shikaku, you're right. Just the title was Shikoku, Killer
It was
Shikoku.
Shikoku, yeah.
I do want to address Revis's question, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
He asks how I know when I'm done setting if I keep reworking the same puzzle. I think it's because usually if I find something, it's like before I start setting, a lot of times I will kind of play around with it, like just play around with the idea, even just
Yeah.
the at a fundamental level, and I might try to think of a different logic that I can use, and I think ultimately when I feel like I have visited most of the logic that I could originally conceive of, then that's usually when I'm like, okay, I'm good. I think it's good. I mean, if it feels fun and I don't feel like there's something that I found that is just missing. For example, like some sort of insight I had that I would like to share that isn't in the puzzle, then I will keep working on it.
Right.
And then also just, like I said, importantly is that fun. I mean, I talked about this a lot with a lot of different people, but it's like for me, puzzles, like it shouldn't be about if something is provably true. It should be about if something is fun to prove true.
Right.
So like, there may be properties that I find myself that that's kind of like, oh, that's cool. But then I might, be like, well, I can't really include that in the puzzle, but no one's going to like that. It's like kind of, it would be, it's like, so I just, there are certain things that might not even include that I discover, but, so first and foremost, I want it to be fun, but there are, I just kind of try to jam things into my puzzles.
Fair enough.
I feel it's crammed full of as much as it can be, then I'm good.
I can sort of sometimes tell sometimes when you ask for like a second or third test on something, there's something that you're not quite happy with in the puzzle, if that makes sense. Like I can sort of just tell from the way you're talking about it. Does that happen very often where you maybe got one or two tests on a puzzle and then you're not sure if you like it or not, or certain steps that could be changed?
I think it really, yes, but I don't think it really necessarily is because I get feedback on like testing feedback that I don't like. I mean, that would obviously make me second, it would obviously make me
Question.
doubt the puzzle's
Yeah.
funness, but I mean, like if I got negative feedback, someone was like, that was really hard and I didn't like it, then I'd obviously think about that some. But the I'm feeling spacey. What was the question?
Oh my word, what was the question? No, I'm spacing. Whatever, just forget it.
No, it was anything. Oh yeah, I mean, I think that no, there's
Yeah.
definitely I will get tests, and sometimes I might even ask for tests, knowing that there's something that I'm skeptical of.
Right.
And I might ask the tester, like, so how was this? Like I might, because sometimes you have to specifically ask about one specific thing, and say if they got past it no problems, or if they were like, yeah, that was really hard, I love the rest, then I might be like, okay, that's kind of like a validation that I probably,
Yeah.
if I had concerns anyways, and they just said, yeah, it was brutal, then that's kind of like I'll probably go back and change it normally.
Right. I know Talk had said at some point that you pinged him frequently with, I want to say it was whack or something. How often do you talk to other setters about your ongoing puzzles, setting process?
not as much lately. I've my level of engagement has, I would say, declined. Um, for a lot of reasons, partially because I just had a work trip and wasn't thinking about setting as much during that time. Um, but I would say I talk about the puzzles I'm setting pretty regularly. At least there's a few people. I mean, I haven't talked with KNT about them too much since my work trip, but KNT, you, Tallcat, I don't know. There's like a group of people that I'll hit up and just share my idea. I don't know. I don't know.
What do you think the value of getting that input is?
That's what I was just thinking about. I don't really know. Sometimes I'll just share an idea, just not even actually show the puzzle. I'll just be like, oh, I'm trying to do this. Maybe it's to see if they think the idea sounds cool, even. I don't know. I think sometimes it's just to have a certain engagement with those people. I like you, KNT, and Tallcat, so I'll chat with you sometimes. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if you had said, like, hey, I'm trying to set a puzzle where every number is restricted by a taxicab distance by its prime factors, then I would probably say, well, I'm not going to solve that, so good luck.
Yeah. Funnily, for me, I'm not even sure that stops me sometimes. I do want to address the Tallcat's question. My perspective as a solver, walking away, and if that informs my setting. I don't know, because I don't give up setting very often. I rarely have an idea that I start and then don't eventually finish. So in that way, as a setter, I'm very persistent, which is interesting considering how that's not what I would describe my tendencies as a solver as. But yeah, how does it inform my solve path?
Here, maybe I'll give you a question.
Yeah, setting. I do set. So yes, when I set puzzles, I'm doing it because I am having fun. And so if the step that I'm looking for feels fun to look for, then that's like a plus for me. Sometimes you might find a step. I will say I think about things in general a bit differently from most people. I have a hard time. Part of the reason that I have I am I guess I'm kind of like Kodak in the sense that like Kodak, people make jokes about how Kodak will avoid the intended path. People will avoid the intended path or he will avoid the intended path and find some other way to do it. I'm similar, at least in the sense that I think he's more persistent than I am. He will find that other way to do it. I will just not find the intended path and then get frustrated. So I get kind of tunnel visioned on like, oh, it looks like I'm supposed to do this, but then maybe if I'm wrong, then I might throw me off. So I get a bit tunnel visioned, but at the same, and I can get tunnel visioned on things like the really bizarre things. And as a setter, I think I have the same tendencies. I think I can look at things and I'll notice like really strange things people might not think about. But then a lot of times I'll try to find ways to make that something someone thinks about. I think it's part of the reason that my puzzles, why I am decently consistently able to find new ideas, even in simple or complex rule sets. I'm trying, if I might notice something that maybe I'm just like, oh, that's really strange, I love it, and I might work really hard to make it so that it's something that the solver actually looks at.
Right. So related to stopping a puzzle in the middle of it, like what makes you want to solve something versus not solve it? And like what makes you want to stop solving something? if you're just stuck or you broke it is usually an answer, but is there anything else?
I can tell you the surefire way for me to want to stop solving a puzzle is when okay, so if okay, and this does happen, if I ask for a hint, say if I ask for a hint,
Yeah.
and the hint is given to me, but it's also pointed out to me that there was something that I had jumped to a conclusion to even get to where I was. So that is for me just kind of like I instantly lose motivation because I feel like if I needed a hint, I'm probably struggling, and if I jump to a conclusion, then that is kind of indicative to me that I'm going to struggle more if I try to account for that incorrect conclusion. If I like backtrack.
Right.
So that's an easy way for me to lose motivation. In terms of the things that I like to solve, I mean it's pretty diverse. I don't like a lot of like really mathy stuff, but then at the same time, occasionally I will be in the mood for it. So it really just kind of depends on my mood, I guess. I mean, I solve all kinds of things. Mostly, I'll solve anything someone asks me to solve. I will at least try.
I mean, don't make that promise yet.
I've tried to hold myself to that, but sometimes I'm forgetful. I used to really have a hard time with chaos construction, for sure. I mean, I used to just be really bad at them. I think because I was just really bad at irregulars. But as I've set some, it's helped. I've gotten better at it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously practiced with them, so it's a little less difficult to spot things now. I'm feeling that chaos constructions are easier now, but that's probably not true. It's probably just the experience level is increased, right?
Yeah, I'm doubting they've gotten easier. Just seems unlikely, I guess. But I will say there are certainly, I don't know, I can be a bit rigid on like if I think something is too hard and I didn't like it. I'm not like especially compromising. Like there might be a step that's like really just brutal and to me, and like
Yeah.
maybe there's some other way to see it even. But I mean, it's just like if I didn't have fun, I just didn't have fun. And it's like, yeah, I can appreciate that someone else might have fun, but if it wasn't fun for me, it just wasn't, and that's about all I can say about it. I'm not going to say I dislike the puzzle, but or rather, I might say I dislike the puzzle, but I'm not going to say that the puzzle is bad.
Right.
But it's just
subjective experience, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't want to out myself or anything, but this happened recently with me and you, with Starlight, actually. The step.
I like.
Huh?
I liked Starlight.
Oh, you liked Starlight, but there was the one step, right?
One step.
And everyone knows
I think I was
what step I'm talking
a bit frustrated. I think I was partially frustrated in that situation because it yeah, I don't want to get too much into that. It just felt like my feedback was kind of being brushed off in some way or something.
Yeah, I mean, so from my perspective, I kind of thought, oh, this is like a subjective experience thing. Like maybe you didn't see it in the way that it might be easily seen. But I think or I think some people in the chat are definitely affirming that maybe the easy way is not actually that easy to see. So.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. I mean,
yeah.
And we had a pretty extensive conversation because
definitely.
I mean, for me, it's just it wasn't easy. There's no easy there. It's like there may be an easy way to see it. Maybe it exists. It was easy. It was not easy for me, and I'm never going to say that step was easy. So
Right.
that's just kind of where that step landed. In my mind, it was a hard step, and it was true, Kodak. But yeah, it was just hard. But like it wasn't brutal, but I mean it was hard. I think it
Right.
was mostly because it was pretty far into the puzzle that I kind of got frustrated a little bit by it.
Yeah, I mean, and the rest of the puzzle didn't match that difficulty at all, which is also a big deal in that sort of thing. So to move on from that to something that I find hilarious, in the intro clip, Simon is talking through when he finished three snakes, 2 puzzles, and he says, how did Kagisho wake up in the morning and say, oh, I know, I see this property with Latin squares, and you could have 3 snakes, and then you could set them up in this way, and there's a repeating pattern, and it just works. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm just gonna set this puzzle right now. So I'm just gonna ask you a little bit, knowing the answer to this question. How did you wake up in the morning and think that?
Yeah, because we talked about that. We talked about his comments on that.
Yes.
When he said that. Yeah, I wish it worked like that, right? I wish I could just wake up and be like, oh, wow, that's genius. I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But no, because that was for Zeta's challenge. He wanted something that was like different coloring.
Yeah.
So I was like trying to think. I wanted to do. I had recently done something with Well, I had recently attempted Tallcat and KNT's Yin Yang collab and not completed it. But I still decided I wanted to try to play around with Yin Yang. But then I was like, well, I want to do something a little bit more nuanced than Yin Yang. So then I was like thinking,
Right.
okay, well, what if I did like snakes or something? So then the people in the chat at the time were talking about 3-color Yin Yangs and stuff when he posed that challenge. So I was like, well, what about like multiple snakes? I don't think I'd landed on 3 yet, but at least 2, maybe more snakes, and was playing around in Penpa. I was playing around in Penpa with with this whole idea of snakes, and because I hadn't really done any snake puzzles at all. And it kind of quickly became apparent to me that along the edge of the grid, they were incredibly restricted. So I just, I found that little pattern with the 4 edges and realized that with 3 snakes, that was done. That was literally done. And I also thought that the proof for it was pretty cool. So I went with that. And then I sat there, and it was the process of getting the digits was also very involved, because I was trying to think of different. I didn't instantly discover this whole like cycling around with this repeating pattern. It's not something that like just instantly popped in my mind, because I didn't realize it was possible. But I was just playing around with it, and it was really hard. It was just breaking. It was breaking every kind of constraint I could do along the snakes would break. And then I finally just, found, I found this instance of, if the digits repeat in a strict sequence, then it like forces the diagonals. So then I was like, oh, wow. And so then I just went with that.
I think I remember you had like a list, and I think I helped you come up with some of the ideas on the list of like things that you could do on the snakes. Like, oh, could they be German whispers? Could they be Dutch whispers? Could they be like some kind of Ren band? Could they have non-consecutive? Like,
I wrote a little JavaScript program to just quickly check, because I did realize that what did I had some realization about. Well, it's like it's obvious that every digit needed to have 2 places to go. So um, like Chinese whispers with difference 4, for example, came to mind originally because it would have 5 and then it'd go 1 and 9.
Right.
But and for that reason, I knew German whispers wouldn't work because I did quickly pick up on the fact that every digit needed 2 places to go. And so then, but I wasn't really thinking about like, okay, well, I could find a sequence that has exactly 2 places to go from every digit. I wasn't really there yet, but and I keep spacing off. Yeah, I had a whole program written. I was like just trying different differences, ratios, all sorts of just ridiculous things, trying to see if they're, and then having it just compute like how many sequences met certain criterion. It was
Right.
just absurd. And then I actually that is the program that I ultimately did find the sequence that I used with, because I I found one that had it had 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It had 2 for every digit. There were 2 places to go, and then I tried it, and I was like, oh wow, that actually works. And so that was kind of stunning.
And how did you settle on this black dot and the odd circle?
The black dot I knew would give a 4-8 pair. There were 2 odd circles if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Grockles tested the first version, which had a killer cage in the middle and was kind of
I
brutal.
think I actually tested that too.
Yeah, it was kind of brutal because I think you had to, so that puzzle in its in its final conception had you kind of tracking like 2 different possibilities around.
Yeah, I don't think I finished that one actually.
Originally, the original version had you tracking 4 different possibilities around. So there was, yeah, you had to keep track of like 4 different universes. You had the 4-8, so then it could either go 4-8, blah blah blah, it could go that way, or it could go 8-4, blah blah blah. But then it was also whether the diagonal was down and left or down and right.
Right.
And so you were actually having to keep track of 4 different universes, as Zeta would call them. And it was pretty insane. And I did like I sent you like that big coloring thing where I fully colored out every universe. That was just, I mean, it was crazy. And so then I did realize that a single odd cell would actually disambiguate the whole thing. But then I also kind of came to my senses and decided to quickly clear up half of the universes, I guess, and just have it be where it's just just only 2 pencil marks around the grid. And technically it was unique with only one of those odd cells, but
Yeah.
I thought it was just more fun with both of them.
It's a really fun realization. The one at the end of the column, it's a very fun realization, I think. So it's definitely worth its place. Talk about what you're currently working on. Give us a sneak peek into your setting process.
I'm working on chaos construction, inspired by Jormungandr, Jay Dyer's deconstruction. I wanted to make something with a single region sum lines that was a chaos construction and just a single line. I'm realizing it's very hard with chaos construction in particular, because the regions can literally just, you can try to force logic, but the region can just go the other way. So very annoying in that way. But I am working on that, and I do think I have something that I'm happy with, and potentially going to be happy with when I finish it. It's going to take me a long time. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And there's also been a Nurek hobby, or a rivers and islands idea that I started working on a couple weeks ago that I gave up on for now. like I said, I don't give up on ideas very often. But I'm just kind of putting it on the back burner for now while I work on this other concept. The Nurek hobby, I wanted to make something where there were lighthouses that gave you the number of river cells in in cardinal directions from that cell, and that also gave you the size of the island that it's on. But it was kind of proven to be really, really insane, partially because it was really powerful. But yeah, I plan on revisiting that as well, so that'll be something at some point.
Interesting. Well, I won't solve it because apparently water is my nemesis. So, as we all know, Logan the Wall had asked, are there specific setters who have inspired / influenced your overall approach to setting?
Yeah, there are, for sure.
Is that your whole answer to the
Kind of
question?
weird. I feel like my puzzles are very diverse and sometimes are kind of really just go their own way in terms of I kind of go out and just do my own thing sometimes. But definitely
Yeah.
my mindset on puzzles has certainly been formed by a lot of members of the community. In particular, I know early on I was watching Clover's betting video on Cracking the Cryptic, and that was really informative for me. Just to think, because Clover emphasized the idea, she is Naverio. Clover emphasized the idea of like cognitive load and how you want if a puzzle's rules are really complicated, it might not be good to have the actual logic using those rules be really complicated because the solver is already thinking a lot about the rules. So, just think, trying to balance that and trying to you want people to feel smart when they're solving puzzles. You don't want them to feel you don't want a solver to feel like you're smart. You want them to also feel smart with you.
Yeah.
So that whole mindset was actually really useful for me early on, and I think since then, just generally the conversations that I've had with people in the chat, including Naverio, Kodak, all the people in voice chat one, the people that that I've already mentioned as well, just talking about setting and what the goals for setting good puzzles should be, or what value there is in different kinds of setting processes or different kinds of puzzle. It's all things that I take into account, and I feel like my puzzles, certainly I have a huge range, right, of sometimes it'll be very standard rules and other times it'll be just very, very
Weird.
non-standard, very strange. I kind of try to keep myself on my toes, I guess.
Right. Andrew Sarkis had asked, or Sarkis, sorry, what's the story behind your other username, Going to Kill You?
Yeah, so that's I don't know why I've stuck with it, because it's a terrible username. I mean, I've known it's a terrible username for a long time. But I originally conceived of the name because I was playing a dumb game called Pawn. It's like it was a little shooter game on browser. This was 12, I think. It's a long time. I don't want to date myself, but it was a long time ago. And I was making a username, and I was with my buddy and my friend. My friend, his name was Andrew. But I was like, what should I make my name? Like, I don't know, like we were just like thinking of like names for this Pawn games. He was like, Going to Kill You, and so I was like, okay. So then I used that and I later for a different website, not long after that. and then I was on that website for a very long time,
Hmm.
and it just kind of became my name. I don't know. I mean, I never liked it. I always thought it was stupid because it would be a serious name. But I've just stuck
Yeah.
with it.
Interesting. I'm glad you chose a different name for your center name.
I feel like my number of features would almost undoubtedly be less if it just said if it used that name on the
Yeah.
puzzles.
Definitely. I think I can't imagine Simon saying, and today we have a puzzle by the brilliant going to kill you.
Right. Yeah, no, that'd be something. I don't even know. I feel like he wouldn't feature it. I mean, I just feel like they wouldn't feature it because
Yeah.
it'd just be like they might ask me. They might if I had a particularly brilliant puzzle, they might ask if I had a different name I'd like to go by or something. Just because it's like very edge lord kind of name. That wasn't its intention when it was made. It was just for a shooter game, and it was just a childish, silly little name. But I've stuck with it for whatever reason.
uh, what's your biggest puzzling regret? Is there any puzzle that you'd like to take back or redo?
Biggest puzzling regret. I don't know. I don't like to think about things in that way. Even in my life. Feel like the puzzles that I've set have gotten me where I am, and I like the puzzles that I set. I enjoy setting puzzles, and I enjoy setting my puzzles. So um, I don't really think that there are any puzzles that I regret. I think there are certainly some puzzles I've made that I'm maybe less proud of, but even then, the ones on LMD, I'm pretty happy with most of the ones on LMD. I suppose if there was one that I could pick out, it would probably be that a starboard steerer, which you solved. Maybe that's what you were getting at. I almost feel like you were hinting at that because
No, I wasn't.
this first conversations was about that puzzle, and yeah, that puzzle was something else.
Forgot that one was on
But I mean,
LMD.
I also think there was something cool about it. It just wasn't a particularly good overall puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, when we first talked, I didn't think that we were going to be friends based on the conversation.
Yeah, that because that puzzle was very mathy, right? And it was hadn't been setting long, and I thought set was cool, and I wanted something
Yeah.
to set, and I wanted with math. I thought killer cages and arrows. I thought all of it was like really cool, and so I was like, oh, and when I thought of this, I conceived of this set that had this math you could do around it that was just really bizarre, and it was kind of cool, but I don't know. I don't. Set has I don't appreciate set as much as I did when I first started.
It's okay. We've all been victim to the set. Just got confused because we love setting, so
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
all caps.
Yeah, when it's all caps. I know you've done collaborative setting. You've actually done quite a bit of collaborative setting. What value have you gotten from your collaborative setting experiences?
I think it's always fun. It's always fun to see different people's processes. It's also kind of like a certain level of validation. Like, oh yeah, I can set something with a setter that I think makes very good puzzles, and I can still contribute something. That feels nice, right? I mean, like I did a collab with Codec, and we've done collabs. We did a collab with Codec called 10, and it's kind of like we both brought something to that puzzle, and I was really, I think we were both pretty happy with how that went. It was kind of hard to get it past the break-in, surprisingly hard, but we did get something out of it. And I just recently did something with Tallcat as well, um, that I'm also pretty happy with. I mean, that was maybe I guess the one puzzle I did work on while I was on my work trip was with Tallcat. We did that it still hasn't been posted, so I guess that's forthcoming, but we finished it. But yeah,
Cool.
I like seeing how other people approach setting, their thoughts on setting. I mean, it's inevitably going to come to light, just like why they like or dislike certain kinds of deductions, how they want the flow to go. It's all informative for my own setting,
Yeah. I mean, even just this, sitting down and talking about setting for 2 hours with a bunch of different constructors, I feel like over the past couple months, it's sort of, I have like through osmosis absorbed some of the knowledge of all of the setters. Soon I will be the most powerful of all.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you think because when you're setting by yourself, it's like then maybe there's like a concept that you're thinking about, but then maybe when you're collabing with someone, they may be like, oh, but we could maybe do this, like doing it this way might be more interesting in such and such way. And that can be really like fun and interesting to have that sort of feedback and kind of like a feedback loop between two people in that way.
I mean, it really sucks when you're setting alone and you like sort of hit a wall and there's no one there to like save you or think of something else. But it's great when you're working with someone and they can just be like, no, actually, we can just do it this other way. And then the speed bump just like, there's no speed bump. It just keeps rolling.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm a glutton for punishment because when I run into walls, it's kind of like I sit there and I keep beating my head into it harder. And
We already established you're obsessive.
in that sense.
Yeah.
No, but you're definitely right. There's definitely a flow to collab setting. It seems to go pretty quick, right? Like between two people putting their heads together, you're likely to generate ideas at a pretty good pace. So you don't have a lot of time of just like, man, there's absolutely nothing to do here. Usually there's something to think about pretty much at all times. So it's engaging in that way.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite collaboration experiences is with you. It's actually sharing is caring. It's actually right next to you on the. I can't even tell.
Yeah,
Is that that's the left of the screen for everyone, or is that the right of the screen? I don't even know. Just do like weird flippy things with screens. It's the left of my screen. I don't know.
The left of the screen.
Okay. Anyways,
Down to the left of me.
Yeah. But that was really interesting because I didn't really have an idea for puzzle, and I didn't even have an idea for constraint, but I knew that I wanted to do something with Renban and Palindrome, like somehow mixing them, and it was great that you helped me solidify like an idea for how we could actually even do something like that. Which was really
I'd
interesting.
actually forgotten about that process because you came to me, you were like, oh, I want to combine like palindromes and Renban somehow. It wasn't really formalized in your thought, your thought process wasn't like you hadn't really
It's very loose.
thought of anything final you wanted to do with that, but that was the idea you came to me with. And then I think I told you like, oh, well, what if you did it? I think maybe like a day later or something. I came back to you and I was like, oh, I'd thought of something. You could try this, and you thought that was really cool. And so then we worked on it together.
Yeah, I think we were thinking like, I think you were initially said like, oh, you could do like mirroring palindromes, like it had to be like mirrored and then both be Renban. And then we eventually settled on that like it could be either a Renban or a mirrored palindrome Renban. And it just ended up such a weird idea that I don't think would happen if it was just each individual setter but combined, we created some kind of weird rule set that I don't think many people would come up with.
Really cool too. I still think that I mean, I've recently told you that I really like it when two separate parts of the grid work together
Mhm.
to, and that's what happened in Broken Pencil that Simon really liked,
Yeah.
like how you can eliminate 6 on one side and 7 on the other side, and use that together to,
Yeah.
or rather, you can eliminate 3 on one side and 4 on the other side, and use that together to get to 5. I just really like it when there are separate parts of the grid that work together, and that sharing is caring does that in a really cool way. I really like that. There's one step in there in particular that I really liked, and I don't think I've seen anything really like it since. I really liked that puzzle.
Trying to think of which one you mean, but
The bottom right, the row 9, column 9.
oh yeah, okay, yeah, definitely that one. That deduction is really good.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you could set something up like that in anything else. Like
No, I mean,
it's just
it
so
was
weird.
such a one-off, you know.
Anyways, let's open this can of worms. Daniel Silverstone had asked, do you think the current approach for rating puzzles out of 5 for difficulty and for quality works? If so, what aspects of it are best? And if not, what would you replace it if you had the power?
For difficulty, I'm a little bit of an odd one to. I'm not an odd one, but I have a hard time answering that because there are people who were part of the community before me who I think have stronger opinions about the way puzzles get rated difficulty wise.
Yeah.
I think Chaos Constructions get voted 5 out of 5 almost by default, but I don't
For
necessarily
beauty?
think that that's a bad thing because I think Chaos Constructions give you more logic to think about and lengthen the solve process almost always. Now, I do feel like that there's a gap between easy 5 out of 5s and hard 5 out of 5s that well exceeds the gap between the range in any other level of difficulty, right? Like
Yeah.
this, like a hard 5 out of 5 is way harder than an easy 5 out of 5, in my opinion. So I think that could be considered an issue for sure, and I think there may be some value in right. And I think that there may be some value in expanding that range just to accommodate that phenomenon. But it doesn't necessarily mean that wouldn't, get recreated in an expanded scale, right? You could still have the same issue on the highest level. There's always going to be certain really, really hard puzzles that are just way harder than everything else, so it's kind of hard to rate their difficulty because they're just so exceptionally hard.
Definitely.
But I think that the 5 out of 5 system it's certainly, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it a bit higher resolution. I wouldn't mind seeing it,
Mhm.
1 to 10 or something. But I don't think it necessarily fixes the problem either if you did that. That's my take.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by chat. I was about to just go off because of Kodak commenting about astronomers going from nova to supernova to hypernova. There's so many other things that astronomers just like. It's just astronomy is just ridiculous for naming and scales and all the. It's the most ridiculous field in the world. Anyways, I could talk about it for days, but I'll say one part of it so that I can, yeah. They name things like the Very Large Telescope and the super large telescope. Like these are real names for things. That's a very common thing. And
I think I recently watched some video talking about voids and then like in space, and then it was like there was like even like different levels of voids, where it was like between the space between galaxies, and then there's the space between clusters of galaxies, and then some of those spaces were particularly large compared to others, and there were like different terms for all of them. It's kind of intense.
Yeah, it is very intense. And then you have to memorize the average density within these regions. Yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm getting carried away now. Uh, Here should be maybe an easy one. Ron Planer had asked if you could rename any solving technique, constraint, or puzzle genre, what would you change and why?
I don't know. I mean, initially I remember reading that question. I don't think I would. I don't really care what things are called. I suppose if I was gonna rename something, I'd probably rename Naked Singles, just because it's just so silly. But people seem to have fun with it. So I don't know. I think the names are mostly, they express what they're meant to express. They if I say a deduction, people instantly know what I'm talking about. So I think they communicate what they're meant to.
Okay, I'm imagining that that you're thinking you shouldn't rename Naked Singles to something even more absurd. But anyways,
Yeah.
going to kill you singles, Sorry. Directionary had asked, which of your puzzles are you most proud of and why?
I have to confess, I read some of the questions, and then I kind of was like, I'm just gonna make up my answer on the spot for most of them. This is one of those.
How's that working out?
So, I don't know. I'm really proud of several of my puzzles. It's hard because the puzzles I'm most proud of are, I guess, the ones you'd expect me to be the most proud of. But then there's also there's certain like different kind of pride in certain puzzles. Like the puzzles that I mentioned that I made that after my first feature that never got featured that I think should have. Just the fact that they didn't get featured makes me feel more proud of them, in maybe to compensate for that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but like I almost feel like they've been neglected in some ways. Like I have to prop them up in my mind or something.
Okay.
But I would say
I get what you mean, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say though that I think Rubber Bullets, the recent chaos construction I made was really cool. I think the Killer Shikoku was really cool. I really liked Whack. Whack is one of a couple puzzles I think probably should have gotten featured, but just the timing of the feature for Small Hat, I imagine, got in the way.
Whack is quite a puzzle.
I mean, I don't know. There's different things. It's like, I mean, I love Starity too. And I really like some really simple puzzles sometimes too. I mean, like Hourglass. I think Hourglass is really cool. Hourglass was 159 I made not that long ago that I think it's really cool that it's unique. That one's an easy one, right? It's easier to be proud of really hard puzzles because you spend more time setting them a lot of times, just because they're a little bit more intricate. But it doesn't make the thoughts and the ideas in easier puzzles any less cool or interesting.
Yeah.
And as for what Bremser says, knowing they've been seen by more people changed my perspective. Well, I think it's kind of like I think it makes it easier for me to kind of remember or to just like, I don't know, I guess it's sort of just like a Can people like say if someone's saying they really like my puzzle or something, and but they like love the puzzle that have been featured, I could be like, hey, well, you should have tried this. You should try this one because this one didn't get featured, but I think it's equally as good. I mean, the puzzle in particular I'm referring to is Van Helsing. I'm trying to see if it's on there. It's funnier. No,
I
I'm
don't
not seeing
think
it.
it's up there. Oh, maybe it is.
I don't think it is. I was gonna say I thought it might be just below.
No, I
below
think
your face, but
the only
that's funnel one.
the only source I would have gotten that from is myself, and the CTC app didn't save my progress because I solved an earlier version and then resolved it. Yeah, so I didn't solve it for the CTC that you
No,
have
you're
on here.
Yeah, but no, Van Helsing. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, one of my favorite puzzles I've made. I think that's really cool. I really like Sharing is Caring. I like all my collabs. And of course, it's always fun to work with people.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, yeah, I would say that those ones. I mean, Broken Pencil. It's hard not to be proud of a puzzle that Simon responds so positively to, and I do think it's really cool.
Yeah.
But I'd say, I mean, the fact that I publish so infrequently kind of makes it easier for me to be more proud of everything I do publish. I'm pretty proud of most of the puzzles I make. It's most of the puzzles I post.
So we've mentioned that you do like a complaint. Like, it's good to
I do
complain.
like to complain. I am a complainer.
What's something that you see other setters do, or that you see when you're solving that like really annoys you? Like, what's your puzzling pet peeve?
Wait, so if someone else is solving?
Sorry, when you're solving someone else's puzzle, or something that you see other setters do. Like, sometimes it annoys me when people put like graphics on the grid for LMD specifically. That actually is sort of a pet peeve. It's completely irrational to be upset about that, but it just annoys me so much. What's something like that?
I don't know. I don't have anything like that, but I mean, aesthetically, no, I don't think I'm not particularly picky. I've heard some people say like when you have the endpoints of two different constraints touching or something that can like trigger them. I think Zeta has said that before, but I don't know. I've never felt that way. I've never aesthetically. I mean, if a puzzle, for me, it's really simple. If a puzzle looks cool and it's like, oh, well, that's cool. Yeah, it looks cool. I'm not like a purist in terms of what different things I think look cool or don't look cool. It's just if it strikes me, if aesthetically, if it strikes me, then I that's great. If I would say in terms of actual solving, random set, poorly telegraphed set, that's easily the most annoying thing solving for me, for sure. I have a really hard time, and I know this comes up in CCs a lot. So a lot of CCs, I kind of, I'm not going to say like most CCs. I think people have gotten better about this, but I think a lot of CCs I don't love. At least I don't love this about them is when they have like, oh, there's nowhere for 5 to go in this region unless it goes way over here. That's kind of a lame deduction. And it's something I find when I'm setting CCs, right? And I don't like it and I try to get rid of it. Usually. Sometimes you can't help it, right? Of course.
Yeah. I mean, if it's available, it's available. There's not much you can do.
Right. But it's not something it's not a kind of deduction I seek out often. It's kind of an uninteresting question to ask with sometimes an interesting answer, but it's not an interesting question.
I mean, it usually doesn't have an interesting answer is probably why it isn't an interesting question.
Normally the answer is not very interesting, yeah.
Where does this get its 5? Well, just about anywhere is usually the answer, right? So
yeah.
Do you have a pet peeve while setting? Like, is there something, I mean, other than the thing you just mentioned?
Actually, no, I have another pet peeve when I'm solving.
Okay.
Okay, so I pay okay, I just thought of something. I pay close attention when I'm solving. If I feel like I could have sat down and set the puzzle that I'm solving with Rank's solver, and obviously anything vanilla, I'm gonna feel that way, right? I mean, like, yeah, I could imagine setting it, but like, what I mean is that like, if I feel like that's how I would have set the puzzle, if I was going to set something similar, I really don't like that. Like,
Right.
you can kind of tell sometimes if a puzzle feels like a human didn't set it. At least I can. At least I feel like I can. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but that's really frustrating for me as a solver. If I feel like that, even if it's not true, if I feel that way, it's really frustrating. That's another thing.
Interesting. Is there specific, other than using vanilla constraints, is there specific things that you would say tip you off to that feeling?
It's not vanilla constraints. Sometimes sometimes it'll be really, really interesting and clever constraints, but then it feels the actual construction and execution, it feels very not human-like. And well, there's a puzzle in mind that I have in mind in particular. I don't want to dwell on it though. But
Yeah, fair enough.
there are clever ways to use Rank Solver, right? And I just think that it's very easy to get into the trap of using Rank's Solver to see that something's true and seeing that you can prove it true and having fun proving it even. But can you prove it's true and have fun, not not knowing it's true beforehand? I mean, there's a big difference there, and I think that using the solver really just totally undercuts that process of, because you kind of lose sight of if it's actually would it have been fun to have proven if you didn't already know the answer.
Right.
And sometimes the answer is just no, and it's hard to tell if you've used the solver. And so typically for me, if I'm going through a puzzle and some of the steps just feel really, really not fun, like there's nothing engaging about them or anything, it's hard for me not to feel like the person just plugged it in and saw that something was true and figured out why even so they could justify it. But you know, it kind of loses like a certain sense of like splendor or excitement that you get from actually solving it, for me.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry. Some reason OBS is being silly. The chat is gone. Won't come back. But anyways, I mean, this sort of,
Yeah, I think that I want to revisit what KNT just said. I know you said you can't see chat, but he says sometimes for me it isn't even that. The path itself sometimes just doesn't feel human created. Yeah. When things are jumping around really strangely and it just doesn't seem to like flow. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that I can get that vibe, right? It's hard to kind of pin it down exactly, but like sometimes as a solver, I'm just like, that was a really strange series of deductions. And then I might start thinking, could I have, even if it's not vanilla, I might think, could I have fiddled with Rank Solver to set this very strange constraint? And if I realize like, oh yeah, I think that you probably could if you did it this way, then it's kind of like, well, I feel like the person did that because that step was just ridiculous. Sometimes I don't know, I just get that vibe.
right.
Rank Solver is important, right? And setting CCs is very hard without a computer assistance. But you have to be careful, right? You have to make sure that everything that is being proven true is fun to prove true, not knowing it's already true going into the puzzle. And it's really hard to keep that in mind sometimes. Okay, sorry, you can go back to what you were saying.
Tolkien asked, how do you gauge difficulty in logical deductions in your puzzles? Given your own admission that you're not too good at solving, where do you draw the line? It's kind of related to what we were talking about.
Yeah, and so I actually avoided kind of getting into this earlier in the interview because I knew that this question would be coming. First of all, I would say I've probably gotten better at solving since I know I definitely used to say I'm not a good solver, and I still, and there are way better solvers than me. And I definitely do find myself, like I mentioned, getting kind of tunnel visioned. I think that's what holds me back as a solver, like trying to solve really hard puzzles, for example, because if I look at the wrong thing, I kind of am screwed instantly. I'm just done. Because I have a hard time then looking at something else. I keep looking at the same thing and I get like really hung up. For me, when I'm setting, sometimes that whole process of like reworking it, like just reworking it, and then like maybe like a step, maybe a certain kind of logic will keep coming up, even if I didn't necessarily love it at first, maybe, but it keeps coming up, and like maybe each time I find it, there may be certain iterations that are more or less interesting than others, and so then I might like stumble upon one that I think is particularly cool, and that might make it like actually fun to find. Like I might, have some bit of logic. I'm like, oh, there's this property I could use, but then every time I find it in the puzzle, it's really clunky and not fun to implement. But then I might find it multiple times as I try to rework it in different ways. That's like something I try to look for. I mean, I can't give any concrete examples because it's very specific, but like, I think that there's something to be said, by being picky and going back and by resetting puzzles that I've set, which I do often. I kind of keeps me honest, I guess, about like, well, was that step really fun, or did I just include it because it was an easy way to make this puzzle work? So then if I'm going back and redoing it, then it's like gives me a chance to be like, no, it wasn't that fun. I was just kind of cutting corners, so I'll just get rid of it.
Being a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
Which of your puzzles was most important for your development as a setter, like for you to set?
Get this picture on the video.
It's helpful to spur inspiration.
Yeah.
Is there any puzzle that sort of changed your process or your perspective on puzzle setting? Or what you like to set?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I mean, Renban Rocket was really important for me.
Yeah.
Just because it was so vanilla, and I think it was really cool too. So, and I think up until that point, I had done some vanilla stuff, but none of it was all like that inspired. It was kind of just, just some puzzles, and it's kind of easy to get into a rhythm of just making only puzzles that are really bizarre and complicated, and just really strange rule sets, and just going with that, because I mean they're fun if if it's done correctly. They're fun. Not to say that complex rules are fun. I'm just saying that fun puzzles with complex rules are fun. So you can get into a trap of just sticking by that, sort of an MO. So I think setting Renban Rocket was really nice because it kind of helped me think about like see kind of how to approach sort of more vanilla rule sets and set those. I also think the Killer Shikoku was also really helpful for me, if only because it totally took it to the other extreme, where it was like just take the most ridiculous idea I could even comprehend and try to make it fun. I think they were both instructive and engaging for me in different ways.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the Killer Shikoku, there's no 5. There's no 5 in the grid.
Yeah.
That's why it's
Yes.
weird.
Yeah.
If you don't remember the puzzle.
Just absolutely. I mean, that comes from Grockles, because he made a killer with that, where it was where digits could repeat in that way, but not in cages. So then I was like, and then I was like playing around with Shikakus, and I was like, oh, I'll make a Shikaku and I'll do that. I don't know what I don't know why I came to that conclusion, but I was just like, I'll just do both. And then I was just playing around with it. You know, I mean, you kind of, when you first start playing around with an idea like that, you really don't know what you're doing. I mean, you never go into the puzzle like, oh yeah, I know exactly how I'm going to do that. You just play around with it and until eventually you stumble onto something that's like, oh, there's a setup here. There's like at least a very rudimentary setup I can use, and then I was playing around with the 6, 7, 8 on the top and 6, 7, 8 on the bottom, and I realized like the I mean, what I think is probably the coolest single step in that, or at least the coolest pair of steps, are the way the rectangles are forced by those 6, 7, and 8s. I just thought it was cool, and I just went from there and just tried to keep it somewhat simple. I mean, I know it's a hard puzzle. I think almost entirely on the back of the rule set alone.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the actual deductions themselves were more or less pretty tame, I think.
As tame as you could probably get them.
Yeah, I couldn't have made it much easier without just giving all the digits.
Yeah. So when you set non-Sudoku or even Sudoku hybrids, do you tend to set in the same way that you would set with a normal rule set, or is it very different?
It can be the same. It can be different. I like playing around with Ranks Solver, right? I think it's fun. You can find new things and interesting things. So I mean, like even with vanilla rule sets, I might play around with it, see if I can find something that's kind of cool. And sometimes I'll find things that are kind of cool and they're not. I can't really explain them entirely, and so those are the ones that don't become puzzles, because I'm like, well, that doesn't know what just happened, but it's I'll find something that exists, but I'll decide not to set anything around it. But so I mean, there's like kind of playing around with Ranks Solver, but there's also, I like setting in Penpa as well, because it keeps me honest about the deductions that I'm using.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the problem is that sometimes you're setting a broken puzzle and you don't realize it.
Like broken pencil.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of like doing both, I guess. I will set both ways sometimes, depending. Maybe I'll find. I mean, maybe I'll find some It's just, I think the key though is you have to keep in mind what I mentioned earlier about Ranks Solver is, just because something is true and just because you can prove it and had fun proving it, even, that doesn't mean that a solver will.
Yeah. Especially because
if they don't know that what they're proving is true, then they're just kind of guessing. So you have to keep that in mind. Like they're guessing that that's what they're supposed to be looking at. So if it's a very hard proof, then they might feel like they're on the wrong track.
I mean, I get really annoyed when someone says, "Oh, well, the intended step right here is to see that this random cell halfway across the grid, which is not related to anything you've done before, it can't be a 3. So therefore, this is all force." But like, why in God's name would I care that could be or couldn't be a 3. Like, the only
That
reason
happened to me recently. That happened to me.
you know that is because you have put it into a solver and the solver told you that isn't a 3.
Yeah, Tallcat loves looking at random. He pencil marks the whole grid
Yeah.
so that he can look at every digit and assess them.
Yeah, go check out Tallcat's interview. He'll tell you exactly that.
No, I definitely agree. I think that if you want it to be something that makes sense to look at, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't make any sense to look at, which is part of the reason I don't like that whole CC deduction thing, like, oh, blue has to go way over here or it can't get a 5. Well, if there's no reason for me to have been looking at that, then I'm probably not going to look at it. So this is going to I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a reason why.
Right. I mean, it's just telegraphing. You want some sort of indication what you're supposed to be looking at least in some way, if it's particularly hard, at least. And so, when it feels like there was no indication of what to look at, and it was really hard, that can be pretty frustrating.
I think, Isabella, there's certain times when you can use that kind of deduction, and there are
I
certain
think
times.
sometimes it's very pretty. Sometimes it's very pretty, and other times it's very ugly.
Yes. I mean, like, say you have 6 ones in the grid, and you don't have any other digit. Then it does kind of make sense to think, well, I only have a couple ones left. Where is this region going to get its 1? Like, that is something that makes sense. But if you have a ton of digits in the grid, a variety of digits, and you only have 2 3s, and then you have to ask, where does this region get its 3? That's just a ridiculous step and it's not telegraphed at all. So, well, it depends on the situation, but that's a funny coincidence, Bella. If you had to specialize in only one variant, like only set one kind of puzzle, what would you choose?
I mean, it'd have to be Renbands, right? I mean, that's like my favorite constraint. I haven't said a whole lot of them lately because a lot of times when an idea comes out, I instantly make a Renban for it. So I mean, I did that with doublers. I did that with deconstruction. I don't know. So I don't often feel the need to set Renbands like all the time. But I mean, Renbands are really cool. I just really like them. I think region sumlines are also really cool, though. I've been enjoying setting Philomenoes, but I don't think I could just set Philomenoes for the rest of my. I don't think I could do that. Doing only Philomenoes in perpetuity would get a little old. I feel like. But
I already took
it would
Renban
have to
Fog of
be
War.
either Renban or region sums. I feel like.
Malcolm says, or Malrog says you should set a Renban Fog of War. I already did it. I stole it.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do a region sumlines Fog of War.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool, actually. That would be really weird. Anyways, sorry, I shouldn't be thinking about puzzles. Instead, let's think about thinking about puzzles. What's a question you want to be asked, and what's your answer to it?
The question I want to be asked: who's the best solver on Logic Masters Germany? And it's obviously Scorp 17. So I don't know. I don't know. A question I want to be asked. Oh, what puzzle of yours didn't get featured that should? I would like to be asked that, and my answer would be Van Helsing or Whack. I guess either one.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Nothing comes to mind really. I mean, I'm kind of go with the flow. I just take whatever questions come in. I don't really. I'm not too antsy to be asked any questions.
Okay. Another question coming in then. What's the best piece of feedback or most useful piece of feedback that you've gotten on a puzzle?
Broken Pencil was broken for 2 versions. So being told that the puzzle was broken was useful, since it kept me from. That was certainly helpful. Helped me realize that the puzzle was broken.
Mhm.
Let
It's
me
just
think.
called pencil before.
Oh, I think the Starity. I have to say KNT suggest. I mean, in KNT, can I curse?
We're this far into the video. You can curse, yeah.
Okay, so KNT called. There was a really brutal law of leftovers deduction in Starity that he just called monumental bullshit, and so getting that completely 100% honest feedback on a deduction, I appreciate that. I mean, I removed it, right? I found a way to get rid of it. Yeah, I mean that was certainly helpful. I don't know. I feel like most feedback is, well, I shouldn't say that. I feel like about maybe 60%, maybe 55 to 60% of feedback is genuinely very helpful to me.
The number keeps going down. What's your favorite LMD comment that you've ever read, or favorite YouTube comment that you've ever read about one of your puzzles? If you have one.
Oh, I mean, this also ties back to Clover's setting video. Clover in her setting video, she said that in one of her comments on one of her features, it said, "Oh, I never do, I never solve these puzzles, but I managed to solve this one, and I'm really happy." Like I get comments like that occasionally. I think I think on Broken Pencil, I think I had people saying, I think in particular though, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange some of the things people will decide to solve, because I don't think any of the puzzles I've gotten featured have been like especially easy. But I'll get comments from people being like, "Oh, I managed to solve this one, and I rarely do these puzzles, but I solved it and I loved it." I mean, that's like really fun to read, right?
Yeah.
Because it's fun to make people feel to feel good about solving a puzzle.
Yeah, definitely. I love those kind of comments. Okay, let's do some rapid fire questions. So one answer the other. Local or global deductions?
I mean, I that's hard. Okay, rapid fire. I'm not good at
Rapid,
this.
come on.
Okay, local or global? I mean, I think there's a balance. But yeah, I think there's a balance. I suppose that's the only way I could say it. I love it when different parts of the grid interact and see something in sort of like a local way. So I think I would tend towards local deductions, but also I do have a tendency to have global deductions at the start of puzzles that I make. So I don't know. I I don't know. I struggle. That was a hard one, actually.
I can't even think of a puzzle that you've said that uses global deductions, actually.
The small hat.
Sort of.
Whack, kind of. Actually, you know what? You have a good point. You know what? Yeah, all local.
Sort of.
Screw
Sort of.
global deductions. All local. I think sometimes I make puzzles that I think have like a global sense to them, global consequences for
Right, okay.
local
Yeah.
deductions. I think that might be the way I'm
Okay.
thinking of it.
There's a balance. Okay. Anyways, coloring or good looking?
I mean, I kind of suck at both. I mean, I'm terrible at full coloring. I can't. Grockles, when he does that stuff, that just blows my mind.
It hurts me.
I would, if I was going to choose, it'd be good living.
Okay. Geometry or arithmetic?
Geometry.
Okay. Penpa or F puzzles for setting.
Penpa,
Sudoku or pencil puzzles.
Sudoku,
Chaos or order.
I don't know. I suppose it depends on my mood.
Okay. There's a balance. Cages,
Yeah, I don't
lines,
know.
or dots.
Cages, lines, or what?
Or dots.
Lines. Lines.
Okay. To disambiguate a puzzle, a given or a clue.
I'm a strong proponent of givens. I love givens, so I think it
Okay.
depends how much you can accomplish with the clue versus how much you can accomplish with the two yeah, the two cell thermo. How much you can accomplish with the clue versus how much you can accomplish with the given, what it actually does, and what you think actually feels nicer. I think that sometimes people put too much thought into trying to make sure there's no givens.
Mhm.
I think there are certain situations where maybe like you really should actively go for no givens, but that shouldn't necessarily be the goal, really ever. It's just sometimes aesthetically that's what you want, but like a given can result in really beautiful deductions. So I would say either one, but I am a proponent for more givens in puzzles to disambiguate things.
Okay. Outside or inside clues.
Inside clues. I mean, I like outside clues, some of them, but some of them I really don't.
That's fair. Okay, those are all the rapid fire questions. It only actually took 2 minutes.
Wow, I'm so fast.
So fast. Yeah.
That's how I do that's how I approach life. I'm fast at everything I do.
Yeah. Uh, how would you describe your reputation as a constructor?
I think my reputation is that I make interesting puzzles. I don't know. I mean, I don't guess I don't know. I think I have a good reputation, and I think that probably revolves around the fact that most of my puzzles are pretty strange. Even vanilla rule sets that I use, the puzzles can be
Yeah.
pretty strange. So I think it's probably what the general impression is that my puzzles are weird.
Does that match your own perception of yourself slash reality?
um, yeah, I think it's fun to make puzzles that are kind of weird and kind of quirky. I'm kind of a quirky person. Um, so to me it's fun to make puzzles that are kind of quirky and like make you think about strange things that maybe you haven't thought about.
Right.
Even on rule sets that maybe you think it's like if I can find something that I hadn't seen before. I mean, for me, it's all about me. Like, if I haven't found something before, I'll put it in the puzzle because I liked it. And it just so happens that a lot of times when I haven't found something before and I try to present it in like a cool way, other people have a similar experience. So I don't know what I was getting at. I lost my
Yeah.
train of thought.
You're the leader of the curve. Um, which of your puzzles came together the quickest is a question that Tallcat asked in the chat.
Okay, wait. Okay, 1 second. 1 second. Because I have to look up. I have to go to a list of my puzzles to even answer that. Let's see if I can. It certainly wasn't whack. I can say that. Um,
Honestly, I think it's probably like a tie between most of them.
most of them are pretty slow.
Yeah.
I Twofer came together pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was thinking about that one too.
Yeah, that one came together pretty quick. I remember thinking 8-color theorem came together kind of quickly too. So I suppose probably one of those two.
I mean, 8-color theorem you had like 5 versions of.
Okay, not that one then.
I mean, the original puzzle came together quickly, but then you changed it completely because you didn't like it.
That's true. Yeah. I don't even know. I suppose none of them have come together quickly. I don't know. Rubber Bullets actually came together. I mean, for a CC, for a really ambitious puzzle, it actually came together decently quickly as well. So I guess a lot more quickly than you'd expect. I mean, the Twofer came together very quickly. I really enjoyed setting Twofer, actually.
Right. Well, that started with 4-color theorem, then 5-color theorem, then 6-color theorem. Not quite, but yeah. That brings us to the 2-hour mark. So thank you so much for coming and talking and hanging out for 2 hours. And thanks everyone for sticking it around and liking the stream and all that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for all the questions, guys.
Yeah. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe because we're almost at 500. I think even if we don't get to 500 by like next weekend, we'll do the celebration anyway, because we're pretty close and I don't want to like keep putting it off. Talkit next, I think we'll do the 500 sub celebration and solving stream. Maybe I'll put it off a day or two if we don't have 500 subs, but hopefully we'll have 500 subs by then. If we don't, then I'll get all of you to like tell one of your friends to sub or something.
I'll have to hit up my buddy who watches Cracking the Cryptic. I don't think he's too into the setting process, but he might like some of these videos. So
yeah,
I'll
maybe
point him your way. I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah, so if you guys have friends who would enjoy this type of content or who wouldn't enjoy this type of content, but you can force them to sub anyway, and hit them up. Thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.